Hello, my name is SandraVolken. I am a PhD student at the University of Bern in Switzerland, and I am presenting some initial work on the horticultural production in Senegal and the relations between production, water resources, and labor. And on the right side, you can see a map of Senegal in West Africa and our case study region, which is in the coastal area called the Niayes area. This region offers particularly suitable ecological conditions to produce vegetables and fruits, mainly because of the very easy access to fresh groundwater. But despite of these good conditions, many smallholder family farms struggle to survive, and their working and living conditions are becoming increasingly difficult. And one problem is the decreasing access to this groundwater, which is caused by climate change, but also by an overuse of water by a growing population. And the problem is, as groundwater levels decrease, farmers often need to wait a long time for the water to appear in their wells. And so they have not sufficient time left to irrigate the whole fields, and they lose some of their production potential. But there is a whole range of other socio-economic and environmental challenges for the farmers, which makes the problem quite complex. And there is currently also no policy in place that effectively supports these smallholder vegetable producers. And as a result, more and more of these farmers are forced to give up and sell their land. And therefore, we aim to formulate policies that could effectively improve their situation in the long term. Some policies that are discussed in Senegal to support these farmers are supporting more conventional chemical input intensive agriculture. Such policies include, for example, subsidies for fertilizers or fuels, and they would probably help the farmers in the short term. But we assume that it would have negative side effects in the long term, for example, on soil and water quality, but also on employment. And on the other hand, there are alternative policies, such as support for organic agriculture or for agroecological practices, and this would allow for a more sustainable use of resources, and this could create higher and more stable yields, but only in the long term. And in addition, such ecological farming practices could also create more potential agricultural employment, because they tend to require more human labor input instead of chemical inputs. But as we saw in the slide before, higher labor demand is already a problem for the farmers, and it does not automatically lead to higher employment. So both types of policies have positive and negative impacts on farmers' livelihoods. And we want to highlight the short and long-term effects of these policies to show the trade-offs that the farmers would face, and also to show under what political conditions potential synergies between ecological farming and employment could be created. We start by modeling smallholders' household income and the factors that influence it, and then we will model potential impacts of different policies. And to do that, we will conduct group model building workshops with local farmers, on the one hand to validate the household model, but then also to identify suitable policy measures. So here I can show you part of the household model, and this causal loop diagram highlights two of the major reinforcing loops that contribute to a decreasing income. And I'm starting here with the stock variable, with the household wealth, which is often not sufficient for the farmers to buy all the inputs they require. This leads to suboptimal yields and the low production, and this of course leads to a low income. And in turn also, with decreasing incomes, farmers cannot afford to have all family members working on the farm. So there is less available labor, as some family members need to work off farm. And so in turn, they don't have sufficient labor to cultivate the large area. And in addition, as we have heard before, there is increasing labor demand for irrigation, which adds to this problem. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward for your questions and inputs.